So I welcome all of you to this unit. This is basically a biofertilizer production unit. So different types of the biofertilizers were produced here. First of all, you all know the introduction about these biofertilizers. What are biofertilizers?
Yes, sir.
So first of all, I would like to give you just a little bit introduction about what challenges the Indian agriculture is facing. Can you tell me few of the challenges?
We have a huge in chemical inputs being used, and we have
Yes.
less stagnant plants. We have to enhance the production as well. And
Vegetable, chemical, food
So these are the challenges. In addition to these challenges, there are few more challenges, like we have the declining response ratio. That is a very, very big challenge. We are using the chemicals, but we are not getting the proper response. If we talk about 1950, we were getting 13 kilograms of the grain against 1 kilogram of nutrient. आप समझ रहे हैं ना? अगर हम यहाँ से 1 किलो NPK डालते थे तो कितना वहाँ से हमें ग्रेन मिलता था? Around 13 to 14 kilograms. Then it slowly declined, and currently it is about 4 kilograms, 3 to 4 kilograms of the nutrient of the grain which we are getting against the application of 1 kilogram of the nutrient. है ना? So the crops are not responding. So there is some issue in the system. So that is one of the challenge. Another challenge is that there are the emerging nutrient deficiencies. Previously, only one nitrogen was reported deficient. Then nitrogen, phosphorus, then potassium, and now about 7 to 8 nutrients are deficient. How many fertilizers we are applying? Three fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And these three fertilizers are having very less use efficiency. You know what is use efficiency?
Yes, sir.
There are different types of use efficiencies. If we talk about the agronomic use efficiency of the fertilizers, if we apply 100 kilograms of the nitrogen, what is its use efficiency? And 20 to 30% of the nitrogen gets utilized by the crop, and rest gets lost by different means. What are those means? Leaching losses are there, volatilization losses are there. Leaching losses because it gets converted into, normally we are applying the urea and nitrogenous fertilizer. It gets hydrolyzed, then converted into the nitrate. It's a negatively charged, and soil is by and large negatively charged. They don't attract each other, the repulsion takes place, and there is the water movement, so it gets leached down. Then with the change in the pH, there is the change in the form of the nitrogen. It gets converted into the different gaseous forms. Volatilization, ammonia volatilization normally taking place, high temperature and a little bit of higher pH. That is one issue with the nitrogen fertilizers. Another issue is with the phosphatic fertilizer. Phosphorus we are applying through the DAP, diammonium phosphate, normally or monoammonium phosphate. This phosphorus is very susceptible to the fixation because plants take this phosphorus DAP, it ultimately gets converted into H2O4, H2PO4 form, H3PO4 form. That is a negatively charged ion. This negatively charged ion reacts very quickly with the positively charged ions. If you know the chemistry of the soil, aluminum is there, calcium is there, calcium phosphate fixation, aluminum phosphate fixation, zinc phosphate fixation, iron phosphate fixation, and ultimately farmer is once the farmer goes to the field, he is not seeing much of the response of these chemical fertilizers because he does not know about the chemistry, what is taking place inside the soil. So its use efficiency is again low, very low. It is around 20%, 30%. So 70% of this phosphorus gets lost. So it is a very costly nutrient because the production cost is very high. These are the fossil-based products. When we produce these, you know how this nitrogen is produced. Haber-Bosch method, nitrogen and hydrogen, when the reaction takes place in the bioreactors, in presence of the huge huge source of the energy and the pressure and the catalysts, then ultimately what happens is that ammonia is formed. So that ammonia is being then utilized for the production of different types of the chemical fertilizers. So it is a very costly affair. इसी तरह से phosphatic fertilizer, phosphorus production of the phosphatic fertilizer is itself a very tedious and a very energy consuming process. Then another nutrient, major nutrient is the potassium. Potassium is also deficient in majority of the Indian soils. Annually, we are removing 7 million metric tons of potassium from the soil. कितना? 7 million metric tons. And normally हम जो crops grow करते हैं, crops में अगर हम एक plant की analysis करेंगे, always we will find that the plant is containing the higher content of the potassium than what we have applied. है ना? So where from this potassium is being mined? It is being mined from the soil itself. So there is a negative balance. We are removing this potassium 7 million metric tons and adding only 1 million metric tons. So we are left with the deficiency of 6 million metric tons of the potassium annually. है ना? So now ये कहाँ से आएगा ये potassium? So naturally what happens? There is the increase in the list of the deficient nutrients in the soil. इसी तरह से हाँ potassium की use efficiency we are applying the muriate of potash. That muriate of potash कहाँ से हम बनाते हैं? Muriate of potash है ना? Kainite, potassium bearing minerals है ना? Potassium sulfate इसी से हम बनाते हैं potassium muriate of potash. So this potassium is again susceptible to the fixation. इसकी fixation कहाँ पे होती है? In the interlayer space, है ना? You must have studied the clay chemistry. 1:1 type of the mineral, 2:1 type of the mineral. So this potassium gets fixed there, in between the clay layers. Then sometimes what happens is a lot of potassium is present in the soil, but that is not available to the plant. That is because of the fixation. Then sulfur. What is the major source of sulfur? Major source of, there is not any major sulfur bearing mineral. है ना? Is there any nitrogen bearing mineral? No. We don't have. Nitrogen के लिए भी कोई mineral नहीं है हमारे soil में. Sulfur के लिए भी उतने ज़्यादा minerals नहीं है. There are some sulfur bearing minerals, but majority of the sulfur and the nitrogen comes from the organic matter. ठीक है ना? तो सल्फर की भी जो भी हम फर्टिलाइजर्स यूज करते हैं सल्फर का, इसकी भी यूज एफिशिएंसी बहुत कम है. इसकी भी 8 to 10%. But normally farmers do not apply the sulfur bearing fertilizers, क्योंकि वो कितना खाद आप डालेंगे, है ना? 2-3 तो ऑलरेडी डालते हैं वो. इसी तरह से फिर माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स ना, कैल्शियम इज आल्सो ए डेफिशिएंट न्यूट्रिएंट बिकॉज इसकी भी फिक्सेशन होती है. इसी तरह से फिर माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स आर हाईली ससेप्टेबल टू फिक्सेशन. ओनली 1% ऑफ यूज एफिशिएंसी. हम रिकमेंड करते हैं जिंक एप्लीकेशन, बट द जिंक इज हैविंग द प्रॉब्लम. 99 to 99% of the zinc gets fixed. These are very costly fertilizers, these micronutrients. Now what alternative we should have? We must have some alternative. Another problem which the Indian agriculture is facing is that the declining organic matter content in the soil. क्या है अभी? What is the average nutrient of this organic matter content? Less than 0.5. It is less than. Once it used to be 1.5%, then declination takes place. And the reasons for the declining organic matter content, 67% of the Indian soils are deficient, very less in the organic matter content. Organic matter is the life for the microorganisms, for the soil particles, for the soil, physical, chemical, biological, all the properties are improved by the organic matter. अब आप अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं 67% of the soils are deficient in organic matter. So how can we expect good yield when we are applying the chemical fertilizer? Chemical fertilizer को तो काम करने के लिए वहाँ पे atmosphere चाहिए ना. So अगर हम यूरिया की बात करेंगे, खाली आपने dead soil में यूरिया डाला, will it function? It will not, because यूरिया को हाइड्रोलिसिस के लिए माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म चाहिए, है ना? When the microbes are not there, so इसलिए हमें रेस्पॉन्स नहीं मिलता है यूरिया खाद का. ठीक है ना? That means the soil has become dead, almost dead, because it is a living body basically. Then so we need to have some microbes, but not the normal microbes. These should be resistant, resilient microorganisms, resilient to the chemicals, to the harsh environmental conditions, to these dead soils. And they must be able to adopt themselves in these chemically polluted, contaminated soils. So we are here working on the beneficial microorganisms. Your training is basically on vermicomposting technology. I am just giving you a background how we can link these biofertilizers with this vermicompost. You know very well about the vermicompost. पता है ना आपने आज तो बहुत सारे lectures सुने होंगे. माइक्रोब्स हम कौन कौन से हमारे पास बेनिफिशियल माइक्रोब्स हो सकते हैं? These can provide the nitrogen, so we call them as nitrogen fixing bacteria. These provide nitrogen from the atmosphere. है ना? There are different categories of these nitrogen fixing bacteria. We have these free living nitrogen fixing bacteria, which are freely fixing the nitrogen from the atmosphere. Then symbiotic nitrogen fixing, then associative nitrogen fixing bacteria. There are some fungi also which are fixing nitrogen. There are some aerobic bacteria and anaerobic bacteria which are fixing nitrogen in the soil from the atmosphere, because atmosphere is containing the nitrogen in N2 form, gaseous form. That is the inert form of the nitrogen. The plants are not able to utilize that. Plants take up the nitrogen in only nitrate or some in the ammonical form. Then we need to have the biological system which will help, which will aid in solubilizing, in making this nitrogen available for the plant. इस तरह से हम nitrogen fixing biofertilizers बनाते हैं, ठीक है ना? How, what is the process of that? You need not to go into that. वो कैसे हम बनाते हैं, फिर उनकी क्या properties होनी चाहिए, but ये कि they are fixing the nitrogen, they are providing the nitrogen to the plants. Second is the phosphate solubilizing bacteria. I told you the phosphorus fixation. So we need to have some remedy for preventing this fixation. So that is the phosphate solubilizing microorganisms. These may be the bacteria or these may be the fungi. These fungi are basically breaking, or these phosphate solubilizing microbes are basically breaking down the bond between the calcium or the phosphorus, or between the any metal element and between the phosphate moiety, which is present there. Then they are releasing this phosphorus. Second thing, they are producing some siderophores also, some chelating agents also. These chelating agents are binding the metal ions. जब कैल्शियम बंद हो गया चीलेट में तो फास्फोरस फ्री हो गया, है ना? So by that way the fixation also is prevented by these microorganisms. Third category of the microbes is the potassium solubilizing bacteria. These potassium solubilizers are producing different organic acids, then different types of enzymes which help in breaking down the it is basically a weathering, biological weathering process, by which these microbes are solubilizing the nutrients from the silicates. इसी तरह से फिर हमारे पास micronutrient solubilizing, iron solubilizers, manganese, then zinc solubilizing bacteria. What is the process of manufacturing? What is the process of production of these microbes? They basically have their origin from the soil. Isolating it, then characterizing it functionally as well as the morphological characterization, then identification. Once we identify it that it is not a pathogenic microorganism, then once we are having the surety about that they do not create any disease in the plants, then we go for their multiplication. Okay, so our aim is to have the vermicompost which is containing these microorganisms. So how we can add value to this vermicompost? By addition of that beneficial microbes. Another category of the microorganisms is the mycorrhiza. You know about the mycorrhiza? Mycorrhiza is basically a fungal association between the higher plants and the fungi. So that association is called the mycorrhizal association. There are different genera of these mycorrhiza. So endomycorrhiza and ectomycorrhiza are the major two types. उन mycorrhiza को भी हम ऐड कर सकते हैं. We can add those with the vermicompost. पहले इसका प्रोडक्शन करेंगे हम mycorrhiza का. Once we have that inoculum present in large quantity, then we can add. What is the mode of addition? Normally we need to take 10 kilograms of the vermicompost, okay, and for 10 kilograms of the vermicompost add near about 200 ml. 200 ml of biofertilizer or the beneficial microbial consortium, which is containing the cell count up to 10 raised power 8. 10 raised power 8. आपने इसमें ऐड कर दिया. ऐड करने के बाद you wait for some time, keep it in normally हम गनी bags में रखते हैं, है ना? But keep it, we can keep it under some cover like the tarpaulin, है ना? If it is a huge this heap, mix the biofertilizer with it, then cover it with the tarpaulin, then give a turning after 10 days, okay? Then the multiplication will take place. these microbes will automatically multiply here, because they are basically feeding on the organic matter. है ना? They are soil borne microbes, so they can thrive, they can survive well in that vermicompost. Okay, so by that way we can enrich our vermicompost with the beneficial microorganisms. ठीक है ना? Then we can sell it, we can label it as a fortified vermicompost and a microbially enriched vermicompost. Another thing, we can add trichoderma to it also, because trichoderma is having a dual function that we can use for the biocontrol as well as for the solubilization of these phosphates, that acts as a phosphate solubilizer. And a lot of work has been done on that. So by this way, then we packing and all that, you know how we can pack. And we must take care while packing, it should be not completely anaerobic condition. जब हम इसकी पैकिंग करेंगे, because it is containing the microorganisms, aerobes, so इसकी पैकिंग जो होनी चाहिए, that should be porous, then we can keep it for a longer period of time. Okay? ठीक है, करो विजिट, और जहाँ भी देखो गाँव से यहाँ ये काम करते हैं, सब बता सकते हैं ना? ठीक है, सर्टिफिकेट होता है ना? Sorry, sir.
ये इसका नहीं